So, getting back to NASA, NASA's the vehicle to take us to space. I was 1 month old, sitting on my mother's lap. I was born June 26, 1969. July 20th, barely a month later, I'm watching blurry images on a black and white TV that my dad actually took pictures of. I have the scrapbook at home of the photos from the TV of man allegedly walking on the moon. And so, that's all I've ever known growing up. From a month old, it's NASA. And so, I see Star Wars, I'm impacted by that. I'm a science fiction fan. I love those shows. If I want to get to space, if I want to be Luke Skywalker or Captain Kirk or whoever, pick your favorite space guy, the way to get there is NASA, So you become obsessed with it. It becomes almost a god to you because you're like, all your focus and attention is that. I got to get to that. That was my focus. That's why I joined the military. And then it was a few years ago, I started to question the narrative of 9/11. And as a former Boy Scout, Army guy, patriotic rah-rah, it was unthinkable that the official story wasn't true. I began to question that. And then a few years later, my friend Mike started questioning the moon landings before I did. And I heard what he had to say, and I was a little bit intrigued by it. But then eventually, I decided to finally look into it for myself. And there are lots of problems with the moon landing. And for one thing, Orion is the new project that replaced the space shuttles. Orion is supposed to be, this is the new big, the pinnacle of our technology. And they're like, well, we can't go anywhere yet till we figure out how to get through the Van Allen radiation belts. And you're kind of like, wait a minute, why don't you just do the same thing in the 60s and 70s? When you went through that thing, several times there and back, in a tin can and jumpsuits. And by the way, if those jumpsuits are so great, why don't you go clean up Fukushima? Or any place else where we've got radiation problems. Well, they can't do it because that stuff's not what we were told it is. And so when you have NASA themselves telling you, hey, we can't get through the radiation, we got a problem with radiation, that immediately nullifies everything that they claim to have done before. So when you ask them about it, they say, well, we lost all the telemetry, we lost all that information, everything, all the technology that we were able to supposedly use to get to the moon, we don't have it anymore. Really? And then when they start sending you pictures of Pluto that happen to look like Pluto, the Disney character, you're like, somebody's just laughing at us at this point. And they're beaming us back photos from how many millions of miles away? And yet I have trouble keeping a Wi-Fi signal in the hotel. How are you getting that Wi-Fi signal of pictures emailed to us from freaking Pluto, not just through that massive distance, but also through the Van Allen radiation belt? And presumably there's more radiation beyond the belt because that belt's supposedly there to protect us from the other stuff. Show me a picture of a satellite, a photograph of a satellite in orbit. But the sad part is that even if they did that, it'd be hard to tell if nowadays with technology that we have in 3D graphics and things like that. It's going to be hard to tell. We're at that point now. But throughout the 70s, or 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, looking back now, it's easy to tell what is just ridiculous attempts at CGI. There's no reason to believe NASA for anything, and there's every reason to question them about everything. Maybe somebody needs to rise up and say, hey, we need to audit everything about NASA. How did you guys lose the most significant data of all of human achievement? Somehow we managed to hold on to the blueprints for creating a car or an airplane or a helicopter. But the most significant achievement of all of humanity, sending men to the moon, landing them safely, and then recovering them, and you've lost all that information? Stop all funding for NASA right now. You get $0 until you explain what you've done with all of our money for the last 50 years.
ridicule them in public. Don't fall for the convention that we're all too polite.
Scientism is simply religious beliefs clothed in scientific terms.
They have a belief system that they are starting with, and they're doing everything they can to force science into agreement with that belief system.
If the erosion rates were true, going back millions of years, these tracks should be disappeared millions of years ago, but they're not.
So why not put these in the museums? Because they vindicate the Bible.
Don't tell me my theory is religious and yours is science. Oh no, sir, they're both religious. Evolution is a religion, so you have to believe.
Mainstream media, when it begins to push a scientific agenda, it consistently is leading people 180 degrees away from Scripture and a personal relationship with our Creator.
Science is a philosophy of discovery. Intelligent design is a philosophy of ignorance. That's all.
And so this is the next step of what we see as the strong delusion.
We despise him.
You're being indoctrinated. You have to answer the questions a certain way or you're going to get an F.
Do you get your cosmology from the Bible and what you can observe, or do you get it from these people who admit it is a religion, it is a belief system, it is esoteric philosophy?
The world is going to gather together to make war with God.
It's scientism versus God. That's what's going on.
You and I are descendants of Martians.
Okay, and that's not crazy. And that's not crazy?
If we are faced with a common enemy in outer space, it would indeed help to unite the Earth.
If a non-rotating flat Earth does not exist, why would you even use the phrase? Why would you even say that?
Celebrate Truth presents a flat-out truth production. Coming this fall, the journey continues of the biggest deception in the entire world. From the director of The Global Lie and Scientism Exposed.
Could they be lying to you?
A deception this big would take generations to hide the true creator of creation. Scientism Exposed 2, a Robbie Davidson film.
How do you prove a black hole? How do you know those gravitational waves prove the collision of two black holes?
Somehow, eventually, they are able to observe phenomena.
No, they can't observe. It's too far away. It's too theoretical. How do we know what they're saying is true?
You can see an agenda.
Coming this fall on DVD and digital download.